I'm Alison Inman. I'm one of the Tpas directors. I'm also Vice President of the Chartered Institute of Housing, and I've just chaired a session on housing policy. Brilliant range of speakers, one of whom was Sallie from Housing Diversity Network. Do you want to say a little bit about...
Hi, I'm Sallie Bridgen. I'm one of the joint chief executives of Housing Diversity Network, and we work to promote equality and diversity in housing because it's absolutely crucial.
Right. I think that was a really interesting session, Sallie, and we had lots of different voices. I think one of the takeaway things that you said, though, was around the impact of poverty on people living in social housing and how that's changed over the last few years.
What we've seen is a massive increase in inequality, and that's a combination of government policy and the government's response to the world recession that we saw in 2008. The consequence of that has been a massive increase in people who are poor and people who are working and poor. So around 60% of people in poverty now are actually in work. So employment is not necessarily your way out of poverty.
And one of the things that you said, which is shocking, was around the number of children growing up in poverty.
Yeah, 1 in 4 children now are living in poverty, and that has a knock-on effect for the rest of their lives. So it affects their health, it affects their opportunities, it affects their development. And social housing is a real way of protecting people who are poor, but also helping people who are poor find a way out of poverty, because one of the main causes of poverty is high housing costs.
So part of what we were hearing about today was the possibility of rent-setting freedom for housing associations. I've never ever heard anyone talk about rent freedom who wants to put the rent down. Maybe I've just not been looking in the right place. What are your feelings around that?
Key question. I think it's a very interesting time to be talking about rent freedom, because what we've seen is a rent agreement that was broken, and what we've also seen is the benefit regime making a bit of a mockery of rents anyway, because if people who are on a low income in work or out of work and can't afford to pay their rent, and the benefit system doesn't enable them to do that, which is increasingly the case, what rent we set is really important in terms of enabling some of the most poor and vulnerable people to have a decent home.
So at Tpas, we are obviously the engagement experts, and we think that having meaningful engagement with residents helps us to do 3 things. So to improve services, to save money, and also to strengthen communities. We would argue that it's more important than ever that landlords talk to their residents. Is that something that you would agree with?
Absolutely agree with you. We at Housing Diversity Network want to improve equality and diversity, and one of those things is around involving and engaging people more. And so what we've done a lot of work on recently is thinking about how leadership needs to include those wider voices. And a lot of the issues that we've seen of organisations not spotting risks, not spotting opportunities, and not really understanding the communities they're served are caused because the leaders sit in a room somewhere and don't involve and engage those people. So we absolutely support what Tpas is doing.
Okay, I heard you speak at the National Housing Federation board member conference earlier in the year, and you talked really compellingly about the need for a diversity of voice around the board table.
Absolutely, yes. For us, boards are one of the concerns about the current climate. Absolutely understandably, housing organisations are worried about the financial situation they're facing, the uncertainty in financial markets, and issues around regulation. The unforeseen consequence of that, I'm concerned, is that boards are becoming increasingly professionalised, and therefore some of those more diverse voices around the table aren't being heard. What you need is a mix of voices, and there's loads of research to show that not only is that the right thing to do, but it delivers business benefits as well.